cover in today's show. We're going to start with Alex Anzalone talking about the difficulties of watching the Super Bowl, but Dan Campbell gave him a reason why, and it makes a lot of sense. Lions free agency. Brad Holmes spoke. Will the Lions be big spenders in free agency? We're going to dissect what he said, give you my thoughts. Frank Ragnow could retire, and that would be devastating. We're going to get into that and the implications. Brad Holmes speaks, takeaways from there. Brian Branch endorsing CJ Gardner-Johnson to come back to the Detroit Lions. We'll start with Alex Anzalone right now. Talking about the Super Bowl, he says, it's funny when we had our exit meetings with Dan the other day, he actually asked the same thing. I didn't know how to answer, wrote Anzalone. I honestly haven't even thought about it yet, and it's kind of made me sick thinking about going to some Super Bowl party, standing around like an idiot trying to pretend to be happy. But Dan said, no, you gotta watch it, man. Use every second as motivation. I'll sure as hell be watching this. That is exactly what we want these Lions players to do. We were so close to the Super Bowl, man, and we didn't get there. But you can use this Super Bowl as motivation and be determined to get to that in 2024. Use every avenue of motivation, whatever it takes to up the level of play for the Lions players. Even though they did a really good job, but you want to be a contender, you got to be taking everything you can to get to the Super Bowl. Motivation is one of that. Love it, Dan Campbell, how he said it. Like Alex Anzalone doing it. So question for you. In 2024, is it Super Bowl or bust? Y for yes and N for no. I want to know what you guys think about 2024. Give me your thoughts in the comments below. Brad Holmes spoke about the free agency period, and this is what he says. He says, yeah, man, look, it's one pot. It's one pot. You've got to be very strategic in how these finances work. That's what makes the league as great as it is, Holmes says. But you've got to be strategic in how the pot is divided or divvied up. But we'll be smart. We'll make the right choice. But yeah, it's just changing landscape of free agency. He continues on here talking about you've got to think back our first free agency. We didn't have real resources spent. We had very selective and try to find out Alex Anzalone, Khalif Raymond, and those guys, Holmes said. And then last year, we had a little bit more resource. We were able to get Cam Sutton and CJ Garner Johnson. This year, it's going to be a little bit different. Breaking down what he said about free agency, it's nothing new. He is strategic about finding players that fit the mold of the Detroit Lions. Gritty, playing through pain. Very intense about the game of football. So you got to look at those players. It may not necessarily be the biggest names in the world, like a Chase Young, but he's going to get players that make plays. And that's depth, right? It's depth. Primarily selected players in free agency. But it doesn't mean he won't spend big. I can see a legit situation where they go big on a cornerback or an edge rusher like my guy, Danielle Hunter. I think that's a possibility, and then kind of do the rest with more selected free agents. Get one good one and maybe go, depth for the rest. That's a thing they could do. But you know what you can do? Stop paying for sports, overpaying for that bad boy. You need to get GameTime with killer deals, last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. You can stop stressing and start getting hyped for the fun that you're going to have. Find and buy tickets at every kind of area, whether it's sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, or whatever, with their lowest prices guaranteed. It's the GameTime guaranteed, which means you always get the best price. You find tickets in the same section or less, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. Right now, special offer. If you want to go to the big game, you'll get $100 off a ticket if you put in Vegas 100. Folks, remember that, Vegas 100. You can get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, baseball, basketball, concerts, and more. In the middle screenshot, by the way, I think it's a fantastic picture of the app. It shows you where your seat is. You move your phone left to right, you can see the area like a 3D live photo. But folks, you need to put in the promo code Vegas100 to get $100 off your purchase to the big game. And this is not just exclusive to new users, it's to everybody. That's it. And it's really easy. Go to the redeem code section, plug in Vegas100, terms do apply. You got to have an account. Put it in there, and you're going to save money to the big game. So get started right away. The link is going to be in the description and comment section of this video. So if you're buying Lions tickets, make sure you use a GameTime. Download GameTime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price is guaranteed. Let's go ahead and start and talking about Frank the Tank Ragnow. This year, we've been hearing speculation that he potentially could retire. It's all been speculation, but it could actually happen. Frank Ragnow is, he's young, but he is beat up. He is tore up. His body is absolutely wrecked. And when you're in a situation like that where everything's starting to hurt, it doesn't matter how old you are, you could retire early. Now, Frank Ragnow is talking about he's going to look for the situation, what's best for him and his family. I think he comes back this year. I do. But I think this could be his last year in Detroit. He could retire after this year. And that would be devastating. It would be. So I got a question for you. Do you think that Frank Ragnow retires this year? Why for yes and for no? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get into good old CJ Gardner-Johnson because the Detroit Lions rookie safety, Brian Branch, says he wants him back. He responded to this tweet done by Woodward Sports. Offseason moves. Should the Detroit Lions re-sign CJ Gardner-Johnson? He responded, yes, bring this mofo back to Detroit. See, CJ Garner-Johnson is beloved by the DBs. He is beloved. He talks a lot of stuff. He's a veteran. He's a playmaker and a leader. He's loved. Even though this could take snaps away from Brian Branch by CJ Garner-Johnson coming back, he doesn't care. He's a team player, and he wants the best for the football team. He wants to win for his football team. And so I appreciate that. Again, if they don't re-sign CJ Garner-Johnson, for me, it is probably more of the fact that a financial issue more than really anything else because he may want more. We don't really know because he was injured the whole year. You know, he was probably coming into Detroit with this one-year deal last year thinking he's going to have a phenomenal year and then he can get a long-term extension. Then it happened. He got injured. And so maybe he does another one-year deal. I don't know. It's going to be intriguing as can be. It really, really is. It's going to be fun to see what happens right there. So Brad Holmes spoke again about free agency, about the offseason, and it was really important for Brad Holmes to talk to the media. He was talking to the fans about the media, and this is really important. The media hated his draft. They didn't like what he did in the draft, and they gave him F grades. They dogged him, local and national media, and he said, fans, we got your back. This team's going to be good for a long time. We know what we're doing in the draft. You know, he had those receipts on all those people that talk garbage about the draft. And I love it. Put them in their place. Because Brad Holmes is the best evaluator of talent that I've seen ever in a Detroit Lions in this organization. It's the best. Right? They know what they're doing. We need to defer to Brad Holmes. We may not like the pick, but I'm going to defer to Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. They know what the heck they're doing in this company. It's amazing to see the ability of these guys to find talent. St. Brown, Penei Sewell, Derek Barnes, Kirby Joseph, Afutu Melifonwu, Aiden Hutchinson, Laporta. The names that we have drafted has been just so spectacular. Just so spectacular. It's great. It's really good. So I got a question for you. Would you bring CJ Garner-Johnson back when the free agency hits? Why for yes and then for no? I think we're going to be about 50-50 on this one. I know a lot of people don't want him to come back. A lot of people do. I think it's going to be a 50-50 situation, but fun nonetheless. Look, we got free agency coming up, and players that the Lions could target, I do think, is Danielle Hunter. I think, doesn't he just feel like a Detroit Lion? Absolutely feels like a Detroit Lion. I think that's who they target. If I'm going for one person, Danielle Hunter makes a ton of sense because you're taking away a great player from the Vikings team, NFC North rival, placing them on your team, so they lose a good piece, you gain a good piece. and you would have an opposite of a bookend to Aiden Hutchinson, and this defensive line is wreaking havoc. Now, are they going to go get a Daniel Hunter, and then we're going to go get this player, this top player, this top player there? No. It may be one really big name or one good name, and then guys who are depth. And don't get discouraged, folks, about free agency. This happens every year. Everybody gets upset in whom they sign, who they bring back, but they have been correct. Again, just like just like the NFL draft, let's defer to Brad Holmes. He knows what he's doing, and he's proved it. He's proved it time and time again that he is an expert at bringing talent to this team. He knows what he's doing. He's active in trades. The guy is just top notch. Top notch. And if Frank, look, that's another thing he could be doing in the draft is getting a center. May not be the fact that, Frank Ragnow, he'll be here, but you could get it this year, put him at guard, next year put him at center. That could be an option for the Detroit Lions or free agency or whatever if they want to get a backup. But Brad Holmes has got our backs, folks. So let's defer to him. Don't worry about what other people say. He knows what he's doing. With that said, folks, adios.